What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the DFS Dose YouTube channel, Twitter, wherever you are viewing this stream. Saturday night live stream, final look at the DraftKings Week 10 main slate. How you feeling about this week, Joey? Interesting week to say the least. We've had a lot of injuries consistently hitting throughout the week, changing things basically every single day.
Yeah, a lot of injuries, a lot of COVID, impacted players. Big Ben out with COVID. Rodgers coming back from COVID. We got Nick Chubb out due to COVID, and the Browns running backs. And DeAndre Johnson is looking like he's going to be massive chalk. So definitely a injury and COVID impacted week. And I don't know, I'm liking this week. I think it's a fairly simple cash week in terms of the player pool that you're going to be selecting from. In GPPs, I think there are a bunch of great pivots that we will discuss. So I'm excited for this week, and hopefully we can help some people win some money.
Hopefully. All right, let's go position by position, and we can start off at quarterback. The chalk this week at quarterback is going to be consolidated mostly around Dak Prescott and Josh Allen. I think these are two of the best plays of the week. We talked about Dak quite a bit early in the week on the podcast, and Josh Allen's in a phenomenal bounce back spot. Both of these quarterbacks, both of these teams, these offenses are coming off of massive letdowns last week. And I think, we talked how Vegas is projecting them highly. I think we're projecting them highly. And I think it's going to be a pretty solid week for both offenses, Dallas and Buffalo.
Yeah, it's obvious clear-cut bounce back spots for the Cowboys offense, for the Bills offense. So I think Josh Allen is a great play this week. I think Dak Prescott is a pretty great play this week. And for me personally, I think those are the two quarterbacks that you're probably deciding for cash games. And the way the lineup construction sets out, in my opinion, right now is you're probably playing Dak 6,900. Obviously, the concern with the Cowboys is they want to lean more run heavy when they're up, and this is a pretty large spread, 8.5 points right now. So that's really the only concern with Dak. Obviously, the Falcons' defense is terrible, and he should be able to have his way with them through the air. Just the Cowboys are 10th in the NFL in terms of rushing percentage, in terms of their total plays. So they're top half in the league in rushing attempts, and that's kind of the only concern with Dak.
Brady, the commish asks. I mean, I don't think so for cash personally, but for tournaments, I don't see why. I mean, you could play him. Obviously, the pass rate's good. The secondary's bad. Washington's been getting torched all year by quarterbacks, so I don't hate Brady, but if I'm playing somebody other than Dak and other than Josh Allen, it's going to be Justin Herbert. I think Herbert is an absolute smash play this week at 7,300, a little bit more expensive than Dak, but I think that we don't have that same concern where they could shift to being run heavy. They've been one of the most pass happy teams in the league. They're top 6 in pass rate, on the year, top 5 in the past couple of weeks. And Minnesota's defense, I mean, we were talking before the stream, but they are missing like the best player at every single position on their defense. Like they are in a tough spot. And unlike the Dallas game and unlike the Bills game, it's actually a really tight spread. And I expect the Vikings to answer in this game. So Yeah, I don't know, man. How do you feel about Justin Herbert this week at home against the Vikings? Healthy team total. I think this is a smash spot for him.
Yeah, I think Herbert is in an incredible spot. You outlined it all perfectly. They're missing Harrison Smith, who's their best safety. They're missing Patrick Peterson, who's their best cornerback. They're missing Anthony Barr, who is like a top 2 linebacker on their team, and they just put Michael Pierce on IR, who's their best D tackle. So they have a lot
Pretty
of injuries.
unfortunate.
They have a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and they're probably overmatched for this Chargers offense. So I think Justin Herbert is fine. He's $400 more than Dak, and they're projecting very similarly, which is why I think it is kind of hard to go to Herbert in cash, especially on a week where I think the extra, couple $100 does make a difference in your lineup. So I prefer Dak, but Justin Herbert is a pretty solid play.
Is there anybody else that you're considering for cash outside of, Dak, Allen, and Herbert? There's really not for me. I mentioned on the video, which you can find on the YouTube channel where I outline my cash pool, that Carson Wentz is in play, but just because of some of the other value that's really opened up throughout the week, I don't necessarily see the need to go there, but I think he's a fine play still, 5,900. He's a salary saver. It's been really consistent all year. I think he has one game under like 17.9 points on the year. And, obviously going up against Jacksonville, big letdown spot for them after, surprising the Bills last week. I don't think we expect that to hold. And the Colts have the 4th highest implied team total on the slate with 29.
Yeah, it's definitely a good spot for Carson Wentz. In terms of cash games, we discussed him on the podcast, and my thought on that has changed. I don't think he's in cash game consideration anymore. There's just so much value at the running back position this week where you can pretty much just pay up to quarterback. You can pay up to Devontae Adams when we talk about wide receiver. So I think every quarterback under like 6,500 is just not going to be in my player pool in cash and in
Right.
GPPs. Just the upside is so low with these guys. Obviously, they're priced down here for a reason. I can't see myself playing any of these stacks in tournaments, and they're definitely not cash viable. And Mason Rudolph, I mean, nobody should consider him in cash games. Like, just Mason Rudolph is probably a little bit worse than Big Ben at this point, and
Maybe.
Big Ben is terrible. So,
yeah.
I mean, they are playing the Lions, though. They're at home. I don't know. Can you make a bull case for Mason Rudolph this week?
I mean, the bull case is, as you just stated, that they're playing the Lions and they're at home. I mean, they have a 24-point team total, but I mean, I think that this is obviously a spot where they're going to lean on Najee. Like, I mean, it's a 6.5-point spread, which is tighter than I thought it would be, I guess. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't see the Lions going in to Pittsburgh and really being able to hold Najee Harris back in this spot. I don't know that there's a huge difference between Mason Rudolph and Big Ben at this point, but I mean, Rudolph could literally be better. I don't even know. I mean, that was one of my hot takes in the offseason, that Mason Rudolph would start a game this year, not because of injury. I mean, I guess COVID doesn't count, but when he keeps the job, then we'll be talking.
Yeah, and then we just got a report that Kyler Murray is, I think, probably not going to play. They said they're pessimistic about Kyler Murray being able to start, so I think that takes him out of consideration. Obviously, wouldn't be too interested in, stacking the Cardinals up with Colt McCoy. Other than that, I think obviously Brady is a great GPP play. You can stack him up with Evans. Tyler Johnson is cheap. He's 3,300. Cam Brate, OJ Howard are both 2,700. So you got some you got some cheap stacking options with Brady. If you want to run that double, obviously play Tom Brady and GPPs. Like, I don't really need to, emphasize that. The game that I really want to talk about for tournaments and that I think is interesting is the Packers and Seahawks game.
Are you coming around to this? I was hot on this game on the podcast, and I still am.
Yeah, I think I don't know. This is a tough game because obviously the Packers are gonna want to play at like the pace of a snail, right? Like they
Right.
want to just grind the clock down, shorten the game, whatever. But this has a 51 total right now, which is what, like the third highest game on the slate in terms of over under. And the prices on these guys are just so affordable, especially on the Seahawks side of the ball. You have Russell Wilson, who's 6,700, and I think this is like his cheapest price in like 2 years, probably, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the Seahawks wide receivers who are both in the mid 6Ks, and Devontae Adams is 7,900. I think he's underpriced. I don't know. I think I'm starting to come around to, Russ stack with one of Lockett or Metcalf in large field tournaments.
So I've been thinking about this game a lot, and the way that I'm thinking about it is that I think points are going to be scored. No doubt about it. I talked about how I like the over when it was at 49.5. It's risen a little bit. So I think that there are going to be points scored in this game, but I don't know how much volume we're going to see. Obviously, like you mentioned, the Packers and how they want to play. I think the Seahawks are somewhat in the same boat, but I think
Mhm.
that the defenses aren't going to be capable of stopping the opposing offenses. And I think that we could get there on some big efficiency plays, Devontae Adams, couple touchdowns, but I don't know how many catches are going to be going around. So I don't know how much I want to game stack this game. I think it's a good way to correlate lineups, playing two pieces from this game and other stacks that have more volume potential maybe on DraftKings. But, ultimately I think that there are going to be players from this game that are in the winning lineups in most GPPs. And it's going to come down to, is it Metcalf or Lockett? Is it Adams? Adams is obviously going to be super chalky this week, but I think that you want to put a Seahawk coming back in your Adams tournament lineups.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to correlate Adams with like a low owned Tyler Lockett, low owned DK Metcalf, Alex Collins,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you want to get off like the cheap running back chalk, which we'll talk about here in a second. So I definitely like that, and I definitely think it is probably more of a mini stack situation, just for the concerns of the pace. The Packers play at the slowest pace in the NFL. The Seahawks play at the 21st slowest pace. So these are, bottom 10, bottom 11 teams in terms of pace of play, which obviously matters for fantasy football. More plays ran, more opportunity for fantasy points. So that definitely makes sense. I don't know. I just think this game could produce, GPP winners for sure.
I agree. Weather in Green Bay haven't looked. The weather in Green Bay is expected to be like 37 degrees and sunny, no wind, no rain. It's fine this week.
All right.
We can move on. Do you want to move on to running back or
We can go to wide receiver. We have
yeah,
wide
we have some
receiver
wide
questions in
receiver
the chat.
questions. All right, so we can move on to wide receiver. Deontay and Cash. What do you think? How do you feel about it? I personally don't love it, but
I think before the Big Ben news, it was okay. Like it was
mhm.
fine. Obviously, target monster in Deontay Johnson. Chase Claypool is out. Juju Smith Schuster is obviously on IR. So targets should get funneled to Deontay Johnson. But I think the Steelers offense definitely gets downgraded a little bit with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah,
And Mason Rudolph in his 2019 starts, where he started 10 games, I think, when Big Ben hurt his elbow. Uh, his target share wasn't great, but he was targeted deeper down the field because obviously Mason Rudolph can, throw the ball farther than Big Ben at this point. So you're kind of sacrificing, I think, target opportunity for like the downfield upside, but he's still fine. It's really just going to be him, Najee, and probably Fryermuth as the
right.
three guys who really get targeted in this spot. But there's so much downside in this game, I think, even against the Lions, right? You have a backup quarterback that's obviously works with the second team offense. You have a bad offensive line. You have two teams that are bottom 7 in the NFL in terms of points for. You have a 41.5 total, which is the lowest total on the entire slate. Like there's just so many there's just so much downside in this game that I kind of could care less to play any of these guys, to be honest. Like that's just where I'm at.
I agree with you, and we'll get to it when we talk about Najee Harris, but I also think that Najee makes for a relatively strong fade this week, and that's kind of a hot take. But Deontay Johnson is, projecting to be a top 5 owned wide receiver on the week in general, so he's going to be popular in cash. But I mean, I like the options that are around him, and that's really what it comes down to. I mean, Mike Evans to me is just like the smash of all smashes this week.
Yeah.
I think that he is going to absolutely obliterate this slate. I know Chris Godwin is good, but even if he's like slightly limited, I don't know, man. I love this spot for Mike Evans. I think that he scores a touchdown easily, and I think that he could put up a huge, huge game in this spot. Washington's defense is abysmal. I think they're, bottom 3 in points allowed. They might be the worst in points allowed to the wide receiver position. No Gronk, no Antonio Brown. Mike Evans has a huge red zone role. It's all lining up perfectly for him at 6,900. So if it's one or the other, and for the builds that I've been looking at, it is one or the other of these like high 6K wide receivers that you're playing. Evans is the clear-cut choice for me over Keenan and over Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I agree. Mike Evans, I think, is the best 6K wide receiver on DraftKings this week. Obviously, you could see here, it has kind of like a wide range of targets, 4, 10, 4. But Godwin, like you said, he's hurt. No AB, no Gronk. I think this sets up to be a smash spot for Mike Evans, 6,900. Washington, worst team against quarterbacks in terms of points per game allowed. They're the second worst team in terms of wide receiver points per game allowed. This is a pace-up spot. Obviously, the Bucs pass at the highest rate over expectation. Washington is up there as well in terms of pass rate. So I think this is a clear-cut smash spot for Mike Evans, and I think he's a better play than Deontay Johnson and Keenan Allen, to be honest. And both of those guys are going to have ownership. All 3 of these guys in this range right here are going to be owned in cash games.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of a Bucs wide receiver, Skylar asks Tyler Johnson or Michael Gallup, and he clarified that he is talking about cash games on DraftKings. Right now, it's actually really tough. I might lean Tyler Johnson because of all the things we just mentioned with the pace, and even if the Bucs are absolutely smashing in this game, as we've seen, they really don't take the brake. What am I trying to say? The foot off the pedal.
Yeah.
What am I fucking trying to say right now? You know what I'm trying to say. I mean, they're going to still be passing. They're going to be jamming it down Washington's throat. So Tyler Johnson, he's also cheaper. He's like 3,100 or some shit. So I mean, you're bottom of the barrel punting it off. He's in a better spot than Gallup just because he's coming off of injury, and he's I don't expect the injury to hamper him. They said they were going to activate him before practices even began this week. So like they've known he was good. Not worried about Michael Gallup, but I am worried about the Cowboys pass volume in a spot where they're heavily favored. And I think that they could really just lean on Zeke and Pollard. So I think I prefer Tyler Johnson, but the range is hard to get to. I don't see myself punting to the bottom at wide receiver. It just doesn't really fit.
Yeah. And I don't really think it's necessary with the running back value that opened up. But as it stands right now, I think in terms of projections, James Washington is projecting, as the best value at 3,500. He's stepping in as the Steelers wide receiver 2. You have the shower narrative between him and Mason Rudolph. They both went to, it was either Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. I'm not too sure. I'm not a big college football guy, but they went to the same college.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah. Knew it was one of the Oklahomas, but 3,500, I think he's okay. I mean, I think I would prefer Tyler Johnson, although you are sacrificing a little bit of projection. I just think it's, a more bankable outcome is Tom Brady, throwing the ball 45 times rather than Mason Rudolph throwing the ball 23 times.
And I would say the same comparing them to Gallup. You don't know how much that.
And Gallup is the most expensive out of the 3.
Right.
So Gallup would be 3rd, James Washington would be 2nd, and Tyler Johnson would be 1st if I was ranking them for cash. but you definitely do not have to play any of them because I think this is a 3 running back week by far. Like this is
Easily.
this is the easiest 3 running back week in cash that we've had all season. So you don't have to, but Tyler Johnson would be my lean there.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I agree with you. I would rank it Johnson, Gallup, Washington, because even with the concerns about volume for the Cowboys offense in the passing game, like Gallup is easily the most talented player by a wide margin here. And the price is still good. Like it's a marginal difference if you're talking about 4K versus 3.5K. And like you got an elite quarterback attached to Gallup, unlike, James Washington. So the other wide receiver that's going to be stone cold chalk is Devontae Adams, 7,900, and he's just way too cheap for this spot. Like they priced him like Jordan Love was going to be starting again, and that's not the case.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, to be honest. Devontae Adams, I mean, we don't really have to talk about him. Like Devontae Adams is great. He's in my cash game lineup right now. The price tag is just way too cheap for a guy that has like a 35% target share. It's a good spot. Rodgers obviously coming back, and we're gonna have Rodgers in like his vendetta mode. Like he's coming
Yes.
he's coming for the woke mob. So
Yes, absolutely. He's been going to war with the woke.
but you want to hear some crazy shit?
Yeah.
So his dad came out, like they asked his dad how he felt about Rodgers and the whole vaccine situation, and his dad said that he agrees with Rodgers.
Little family mending, do you think he means that, or do you think he's just trying to get back in Rodgers' good graces?
I don't know. So,
Lots to
so that
dissect here.
so then I saw that a tweet that said, "All right, Rodgers is 100% getting vaccinated now."
Yeah,
His
just to,
dad said
just to
that.
stick it to his dad. I don't know.
But
He's dug in pretty hard in his stance. Him and Dr. Joe Rogan,
but yeah, Devontae Adams, Stone Lock.
yeah,
I think just the question for wide receivers is, I think, which of these mid range guys do you prefer in terms of cash, and then in terms of GPPs, who are the pivots that you like this week? And the mid range at wide receiver, who I think is in play for cash, I think there's really only 3, and that's Judy, Cole Beasley, Jarvis Landry.
mhm.
Even though Jarvis Landry is a little bit thin, he's projecting decently. So it really comes down to Jerry Judy or Cole Beasley, and I think you are in this range for one of them. Personally, I prefer Jerry Judy, but I think that's the conversation: is which one of these 3 do you prefer?
I prefer Jerry Judy to Cole Beasley slightly, but I mean it's like splitting hairs. The projection is very close as well, so I mean I wouldn't consider Landry, to be honest with you. And so it's really
Yeah,
between Judy and Beasley. So I think both are fine. Judy's my lean, Judy's your lean. So I guess we could just say that we're on team Jerry Judy this week for cash games. For tournaments though, like I really don't love that range. I like the
yeah,
range that's a little bit higher up. Like, I initially kind of thought this week that Mike Williams was going to be chalk because his prices dropped so low and he's cheaper than Keenan Allen, despite clearly having a higher ceiling this year and being in a stone cold nut matchup. And yet, Mike Williams is completely flying under the radar. I mean, stacking him with Justin Herbert this week sounds so amazing to me in tournaments.
yeah. I mean, he's the thumbnail for this stream. Mike Williams,
Nice.
6,600. I'm all aboard Mike Williams this week. As you can see here, 5 targets, had a crazy game against Cleveland, and then 4 targets against Las Vegas. And the concern with Mike Williams is that he's back in his old role,
Right.
which is kind of like that deeper down the field, high A dot receiver, which isn't going to produce like these types of box scores where he gets targeted quite a bit towards the line of scrimmage, targeted in the red zone as well. And that's kind of been the trend over the last 3 weeks, is that he's back to his old role, which is not great for fantasy. It's definitely inconsistent. But, we outlined the Vikings injuries. They're just so shorthanded this week. And I think it sets up to be a great spot for Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So the double stack is obviously great, but Mike Williams, he's cheaper, $400 cheaper. You're getting ownership leverage. So I think Mike Williams is the clear-cut pivot in terms of that. But
we also like Lockett and Metcalf, right?
Yeah, Lockett, I think, is a pretty great play. I hate to say that. I think he's a pretty great play. DK Metcalf as well. DK Metcalf hasn't scored under 10 points in any game this year. So you're getting a bankable floor of 10 plus. Hasn't scored under 11, as you can see on DraftKings.
Even with Geno in there.
Yeah, even with Geno. So they're getting Russ back. It's a good spot going up against a Jair Alexander-less Packers secondary. Obviously, we already outlined the concerns when we talked about quarterbacks. Would
you prioritize Mike Evans or Devontae Adams in cash? Yeah, both. I think
I have both in my lineup right now.
As do I. I don't know what build you're on where you wouldn't have the ability to play both.
Well, he put in a comment. We're going to talk about running backs here in a minute.
Yeah.
So we'll address those questions. But he put that he's going with Najee, Dearness, and JT. So that's kind of the construction where, it would get you to only pick one. But we'll talk about running backs here in
momentarily.
Momentarily.
Cash stack Rodgers, Adams, Metcalf. I wouldn't play Rodgers in cash, but I think he's fine in tournaments. Adams is a lock in cash.
So who's your favorite pivots at the top of the player pool?
It's the same guy that we talk about every single week. It's Justin Jefferson at 7,700. I mean, obviously this is a game that I love. But I mean, just the ownership is never there with Justin Jefferson. I think the Vikings know. I mean, there were some quotes earlier this week about them talking about how like they know that you can't leave a 2-week span and Justin Jefferson has 9 targets. Like the offensive coordinator said that. It's like we can't be leaving these games with Justin Jefferson having that
squeaky wheel.
It's a squeaky wheel. God, like he was so close to smashing last week and he didn't, and his price is still high, so it's going to keep the ownership in check, right? We're not expecting a big ownership number on JJ at all, right? It's like, let me just double check real quick, but yeah, it's like, yeah. So if he's going to be in like the 5 to 7% range, like my God, Justin Jefferson is a stone cold smash. I love him in my Chargers bringbacks.
Yeah, I definitely like Jefferson. Obviously, we really haven't seen like a blow up game in a while out of him, but he's definitely capable of it. He definitely needs more targets. He is pretty expensive though, and that stack can get out of hand if you're playing like Herbert, Justin Jefferson, Mike Williams, or Keenan Allen. So you're gonna have to definitely save salary in that stack. But I definitely like him, and I think my guy's still Terry McLaurin.
Yep.
Just because the Washington football team is going to get pushed in this game, so. If he gets 10 plus attempts, I definitely like Terry McLaurin in terms of bringbacks. In terms of the bringback on your Buck stacks. And then A.J. Brown at 7,800. It's a tough spot. I think going up against a Saints defense that has been playing pretty well. And obviously Marshawn Lattimore is pretty solid against bigger wide receivers. But A.J. Brown has like a 30% target share over the last month. Julio Jones just got placed on IR. They obviously lost Derrick Henry. He's the only guy in Tennessee. So I definitely like pivoting to him off of Devontae Adams, and then Diggs as well, 7,500. We talk about it every week, but it's a great spot for him. The Bills like have the easiest schedule like out of any team in the NFL, and it just hasn't happened for him. But I'm definitely buying back into Stephon Diggs this week, and there's so many good plays at wide receiver,
and we have the salary to get there due to running back, and we can get to that. We got people blowing up the chat talking about running back, so let's get to it real quick.
They want to hear our thought.
Real quick, I'll make them wait one more second. Favorite quarterbacks in cash? It's Dak, Allen, and Herbert for us.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to running backs because people have questions. Who are the 3 running backs in cash? Harris, Johnson, Ingram. I mean, that's going to be the popular build, I think. Dearness Johnson is going to be stone cold chalk, rightfully so. Mark Ingram is also going to be stone cold chalk, which is, really disgusting to think about playing dusty old Mark Ingram in cash, but he's only 4,500. Alvin Kamara is not going to play in this spot. And he's actually had a really healthy role in the receiving game since going to New Orleans. And he's very familiar with the scheme. I don't know. How do you feel about Mark Ingram? We haven't talked about this at all since this news came out after the podcast. So, I mean, DeAndre Johnson, nothing else needs to be said. He's a stone cold lock. He's the first player you're putting in your cash game lineup. But what do you think about Mark Ingram? Is he good chalk, bad chalk? What do you think?
I think he's pretty solid. I'm playing him in cash, and I know that we've faded plays like this before.
We have
in cash, right? Especially if we have a lot of conviction about the play. But I really do think that Mark Ingram is a pretty solid play, just because he's going to get utilized in the receiving game without Kamara there. Right. He's going to get targets. So I think the floor is pretty safe on Mark Ingram. And as you can see here, I mean, he's been pretty solid, 4.8, 4.5 yards per carry. And it's a good spot going up against Tennessee's defense. I know that Tennessee has been playing really well on D, and I think it is going to be a tougher spot for Trevor Siemian. But their run defense, I think, is still not that great. I don't think their defense in general is that great. I think they've been overperforming. Mark Ingram, 4,500. The touch expectation is just way too high on him. So right now, my lean is you play both in cash. You just eat the chalk. They're both good plays. They're both great values. They're both projecting really well. And I don't know. That's really just my thought. So everybody asking in the question or in the chat, 2 running backs to prioritize. It's DeAndre Johnson, Mark Ingram. And
it's what allows you to play Adams and Evans. So
yes.
if you're off these, if you're only playing one of these guys and you're paying up for 2 expensive running backs, then you're not going to be able to obviously play those guys. And I think in tournaments, that's actually really solid. I think that, definitely don't play both of them. And let's actually talk about that. Because, how are you handling these guys in tournaments? I don't think that you can play them both in the same lineup. Absolutely not. And if I were more likely to take a stance against one of them, it would be Mark Ingram for sure. In tournaments, I see thinking he's a pretty good fade in tournaments, but DeAndre Johnson's really hard to get away from this week. And his ownership in tournaments may be a little bit less than we were talking about on the podcast because Mark Ingram opened up and he's such an easy pivot in that price range where, on Thursday or whatever, we didn't have any idea that there was anybody viable in that range.
Yeah. I think both will kind of cap each other's ownerships.
Right.
Especially in like large field tournaments, which I think, a majority of people that listen to us are probably playing in those tournaments. So I think the earnest could be 45%, 50%, like in the milli. I would say 40 to 50, somewhere in that range. Mark Ingram will probably be 35 to 45%. And I'm on the same thinking as you. I'm fading Mark Ingram in tournaments for sure. I'm definitely playing DeAndre Johnson in tournaments. I think this spot sets up really nicely for DeAndre Johnson as the only running back there. And I think he's honestly just more talented than Mark Ingram.
Right. Definitely at this point in their careers.
Yeah. So I think that is kind of the tiebreaker for me. And he's also projecting a little bit better. And obviously Tennessee's defense has been playing well. So that is kind of like the GPP thing. If, they shut down the Saints offense, they're going on the road into Tennessee, Trevor Siemian starting, the Saints could put up like 7 points in the
Right.
spot. Right. So I'm fading Mark Ingram in tournaments. I'll fade DeAndre Johnson some. I won't go 100%, like I said on the pod, because I think that's just silly to go all in on a player because he obviously can fail, injuries, Browns going to New England, shit the bed, whatever. But yeah, in short, you play both. The conversation really comes down to in cash, which high-end running back you want to play. I think Jonathan Taylor is a great play. I think CMC We're never going to get this again. CMC
Yeah.
is 8,400. This man is projecting for single digit ownership.
Yeah.
That's just
we
silly.
got to talk about that
That's
for a minute.
silly.
8,400. This is a 10K player. All right. This man had 14 attempts and 5 targets on 49% of snaps last week. This dude was on the field less than half the time, and he still got 19 opportunities. And he's about $1,600 cheaper than he should be ever on DraftKings. He's another week healthier. It's a good spot for Carolina. And like you said, double digit ownership. Like I think that Christian McCaffrey is very cash viable. I have no concerns about Christian McCaffrey. Nobody's going to play him in cash. I think you can do it. I think you could play him over Taylor. And I think in tournaments, he's like I don't even know how to describe it. He's such an amazing
stone
play.
lock.
Stone lock in tournaments, man.
And GPPs, I mean, you got to play CMC at less than 10% ownership at 8,400. And he's off the injury report. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, obviously,
healthy.
last week he was 8K, which is going to be his cheapest price like ever in the last like 3 seasons on DraftKings. But, you know, there was a report that said he was going to not play a lot. And he didn't. He didn't play a lot, but he still touched the ball a lot. This week, it's all systems go for CMC. 8,400 target upside, I think, will be there. PJ Walker gonna have to check it down quite a bit to CMC. I think he's a smash, but as it stands right now, Najee Harris is the chalk at running back. Even with Mason Rudolph in, he's currently in my cash game lineup. I think you're just getting a lot of guaranteed opportunity with Najee Harris. You're getting reception upside, like we mentioned. Claypool is out in this game, and it's obviously a great spot. I think he's fine. He fits the build. He fits the bill perfectly at 7,900. I don't know. I think you obviously are sacrificing ceiling if you play him over JT, if you play him over CMC, but I don't think you're sacrificing much in terms of touches. I don't think you're sacrificing much in terms of floor. So he's really the only Steelers player that I feel comfortable running in cash. And as it stands right now, he is currently in my cash game lineup.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think all these guys are viable. Like in most weeks, you know, if there were less options, we would be fine playing, you know, any of these guys. McCaffrey, obviously, Taylor in this spot for sure, with a huge team total being big favorites at home against Jacksonville. Dalvin Cook, you know, the Chargers' run defense is a complete run funnel. I mean, obviously there's Dalvin Cook stuff going on, but that's not going to affect his usage in this game. So, I mean, 8K for Dalvin Cook in a smash spot is super interesting. And then for, you know, Najee, I think has the lowest ceiling by far, but, you know, the workload is probably the safest of the group, save Christian McCaffrey. Let's hit on some of these questions. We have a ton of them coming in here. Is it a bad idea to play Ingram plus Titans D? I mean, no, I don't think about that kind of thing. I usually don't do it, but it wouldn't, like, I wouldn't not.
Yeah, it's a defense. Titans are projecting the best. Really, the only caveat with the Titans D is the Saints are like the most run heavy team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or the second most, right? So if you're not getting a lot of dropbacks, you're not getting, you know, a lot of opportunity for interceptions, for sacks, for fumbles, etc. But I really wouldn't, you know, worry about that for cash.
How do you feel about Ramondre Stevenson with Harris out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty thin. Obviously, not playing Stevenson in cash with Mark Ingram, the same price with DeAndre Johnson, $4,700, $200 more. But Stevenson should play. It's not really confirmed yet that he's in, but they're expecting him to clear concussion protocol. I think he's going to lose base work to both Bolden and JJ Taylor, and then he's going to lose pass down work to Brandon Bolden.
Right.
So,
yeah,
there's not a lot of guaranteed opportunity there with Ramondre Stevenson this week. Although, you know, I wish it like you could pivot to him. Like,
yeah. If Ingram didn't come available, I think we'd be more interested in it, but it's just really hard to go there. Are you playing a wide receiver, running back in flex and cash? Definitely a running back this week, 100%.
Yeah, 3 running back week. Joshua asked DJ Moore Cooper or Amari Cooper this week. I would go with Amari Cooper. He's attached to a better quarterback, better game environment. That total on the Atlanta game is like 55 points.
Yeah.
It's a better spot for Amari Cooper.
Yeah, Dallas has the highest implied team total on the slate, and the Panthers are the absolute worst.
Defenses
total,
don't
honestly.
matter. See, the commish knows.
Yeah,
Don't worry about defense.
This guy gets it. What else do we got here? Good evening, gentlemen. Are we going to 2 cheap running backs with 1 stud or 2 stud running backs with Johnson locked? In cash games, I think that we're locking Ingram and Johnson, and we're playing 1 high-priced running back, your flavor of, Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, and for me, Christian McCaffrey. But yeah, definitely going to be locking those guys in cash. And I think that in tournaments, it's super interesting to pay up at multiple running back spots, because you definitely can this week. Yeah. Third running back. We already talked about Jonathan Taylor. What do you think about James Conner, though?
Yeah, I think we definitely have to talk about James Conner. I think he is cash viable. I think there's about 8 running backs that are cash viable. Honestly, I wouldn't fault anybody for playing like Fournette, Conner, Najee, CMC, Zeke, JT, Ingram, Dearness, obviously in cash. Like they're all great plays. I wish that we could just play like 6 running backs and call it a day, and no wide receivers. Yeah. But he's 6,300, obviously guaranteed opportunity with Chase Edmonds going on IR. Saw 26 touches in this spot. What's the over under on this game? Let me take a gander. 49.5 points. I think that's kind of assuming Kyler's in, but even last week we saw without Kyler, the Cardinals can still move the ball. And I think it's a pretty solid like game environment either way.
Yeah, I mean they're at home against a PJ Walker offense. Like, you're overthinking it if you don't think that James Conner is a good play. And I mean, what's his ownership going to be like? Is he going to be really popular this week? I don't know. Yeah, Conner, he's coming in pretty popular actually.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the more popular running backs on this slate. He's obviously a great play. Honestly, I think Fournette's a great play too, and that's kind of like the pivot is playing Fournette over Conner in GPPs,
which I like.
But James Conner is a great play, and JT, great play as well. I mean,
dude. We didn't mention Austin Eckler, who's a great play this week. We didn't mention DeAndre Swift, who's under 7K. Jamal Williams is out. He's gonna get 10 receptions this week, and he's projecting incredibly too. It's like, my God, dude, you literally just play all of these guys. It's crazy. I've never seen a running back week like this before.
Yeah,
and it really makes you think, like, am I all these amazing running backs in amazing spots, and I'm playing fucking Mark Ingram in cash?
It's just there's no wide receiver value, which we talked about wide receivers first. There's literally no wide receiver value, and I'm not comfortable playing Michael Gallup or Tyler Johnson in cash specifically. So you gotta play Dearness, you gotta play Mark Ingram in cash. I think they're just easy plays, especially Dearness Johnson. Like if you don't play Dearness Johnson,
you're just selling hard.
You're like, if you don't play him in cash or head-to-heads or whatever you do, 50-50s, 3-mans, etc., you just take the money, right? You take it out of your wallet, you set it on fire. I mean, I don't have a lighter. Yeah, you just set it on fire because you're burning money if you don't play Dearness Johnson in cash games. And honestly, in tournaments too. So it's a great running back week. Zeke is a great play. Aaron Jones is a great leverage play off of Devontae Adams chalk.
Standard. It's a standard week where, Aaron Jones is going to go completely underowned and Devontae Adams is stone cold chalk. You guys know what to do. We talk about this like 5 times a year.
Yeah, Aaron Jones is a phenomenal play. DeAndre Swift, even CPAT, man. Cordero Patterson with no Calvin Ridley. I mean, we talked about it on the pod, but his splits are just they just improve without Calvin Ridley in the lineup. He gets more rushing attempts, he gets more targets, and he's their wide receiver 1, right now. Like if you're actually talking about wide receivers, Kyle Pitts obviously is probably their actual wide receiver 1, but
Pats fan, not playing Dearness. How do you feel about that?
I mean,
as a Pats fan yourself.
You can see the Randy Moss jersey right here that's not hung up because I don't know why, but fantasy, like making money, fandom.
Like this coming from a guy who drove 11 hours to go.
Yeah, I went to the last week. I went to the Panthers Patriots game. Watched the Patriots just spank the Panthers.
Yeah,
obviously I'm a big Patriots fan. Like love them, love football, whatever. But I like making money. Right? They're not putting money in my pocket. They're not paying my rent to be able to stream this. Right? They're not paying my internet bill. They're not buying this PC that I'm streaming off of, this mic, camera, headset. So,
but the Ernest Johnson is.
Yes, let's be real.
Tomorrow he is.
Ernest Johnson will make me money tomorrow. I guarantee it. Other than that, there's no other. Dak, Harris, Johnson, Evans. Why are you saying my cash game lineup, dude?
It's like you.
Yeah, I mean, I've said everybody that I'm playing.
Yeah.
In the cash. If you've been watching, you probably should know my cash game lineup by now. I don't really. It's going to be a train for sure. So it's I'm fine with saying who I'm playing. It's going to be massively duped in double ups tomorrow. My specific lineup. There's, I don't care. There are 6 other running backs in play. I mean, you got to play Dearness, dude. You gotta put the fandom away a little bit. You gotta play him.
Yeah, definitely.
He's you can fade him in GPPs though, which I guess is really the discussion of this slate is GPPs.
Right.
Because cash games, like I said at the top, it's fairly simple this week. And we've really outlined all of the plays in cash. And GPPs, I think the strategy, like you mentioned, is playing 2 of these more expensive running backs, like flipping the build. So whether that be paying for CMC, paying for JT, and then I like playing Zeke. We talked about it. Cowboys like to tend they like to become more run heavy when they're playing with a lead. So I definitely like Zeke. Swift is obviously a great correlation piece with Najee Harris. I think that's definitely viable. And I definitely love Dalvin Cook this week at 8K, going up against the run funnel, the absolute run funnel in the LA Chargers. You know, they just want you to run the ball on them at all costs. And Dalvin Cook.
The Vikings want to jam it down your throat with Dalvin Cook. So it kind of lines up perfectly.
Just a quick off the topic question. Thoughts on the Mac Jones and Burns drama. So if you don't know, Mac Jones kind of like I guess it's called like an alligator roll, like his leg or whatever. I don't really think it like he didn't really. I shouldn't say with definitive conclusion. I don't believe he meant any ill intent behind it. I feel like he was just trying to make a tackle. The play was still going on. I don't really think there was.
What did Burns say? I kind of missed this.
He said he wanted an apology from Mac Jones for doing that, and then Mac Jones was like, "I'm focused on this week, bro. Like, get over it. Like you're a grown ass man asking for another grown ass man to apologize to you. Like, get the fuck over it, dog. Like you're in the NFL making millions of dollars. Why the fuck are you gonna ask another grown man for an apology? Like, are you that upset?" It's like shit happens, man.
Hey, they're young, they're kids. They're upset. What does Bill do? Take out their best options.
Yes, James Washington is too thin for cash.
Yep.
Do you have any other thoughts at running back?
I'm just trying to read this. I feel like Dallas runs way more than Tampa, more upside for Brady and more floor. You think Dak is a better play than Brady? Yeah, he projects a lot better.
It's just Brady is 700 more, and it's really just salary.
It is. And the thing is, if you're paying up to Brady, I would rather pay up to Josh Allen specifically for cash.
Yeah, that's what Brady versus Alex picks said. Brady will score more, but Dak is cheaper. Yeah, it's all relative to salary.
Absolutely. Like if I had both on my season long team, I would definitely start Brady. But
yeah, 100%.
we're talking salary here. were there any other running backs in play? I mean, no, we listed every running back in the pools in play this week. So,
I mean, are you interested in like J.D. McKissick?
nah.
The Bucks give up a lot of catches to opposing running backs. They're fourth worst in the NFL in terms of opposing running backs catches per game. Alex Collins, none of these guys.
No, I talked about McKissick on the podcast, but the way that this slate has really opened up, like, to me, there are too many elite running backs in good spots. Like, you can't get by with like 15 points, I don't think, in tournaments this week. I think that you're going to need like 30 spots. I think multiple running backs are putting up 30 this week, and I think you're going to need it in tournaments. So I don't like these guys that are just, their ceilings are just too low. I mean, if you're onslaughting that game, I guess McKissick is like a contrarian piece, but I don't want to play him.
Yeah, no, definitely makes sense. Melvin Gordon troll week. I mean, throw it back to like week 1 of this live stream where I dogged Melvin Gordon and told everybody to send me head-to-heads with Melvin Gordon in their lineup, and he scored 25 points.
That was rough. That was rough.
I'm not playing any Broncos running back just because it's essentially like a 50-50 split. It's a toss-up, coin flip, like of who's going to score the touchdown in any given week, and I don't want any part of it, especially with, like Ben said, the running backs that we have on the slate.
So many good ones. I'm going to be looking to use them as correlated pieces, but I think that we can move on to tight end this week. Favorite tight end play this week. I think we're in agreement, at least for cash games, that it's Dan Arnold.
Yeah, Dan Arnold, I think, cash game lock. As you can see here, game log 7, 10, 5, 8 has like a 23 or 25% target share or somewhere around there.
He's tied for the lead in targets since getting traded to the Jags in week 4. So it's like, I mean, obviously him and Trevor have some chemistry going on. Maybe it's just the way that, the offense schemes targets towards tight end. But I mean, DJ Chark went out, so the target shares all got consolidated there. But whatever it is, this guy, Trevor, is locked on to Dan Arnold, and 17 targets over the last 2 weeks, one game with 5 targets, which is fine. Like 5 targets, if that's his floor, that's fine for cash at a $3,500 tight end. And the fact that he has upside and has been hitting it often with 8, 10, 7, like, you just play Dan Arnold and you don't overthink it for cash games, that is.
Yeah, for sure. He's cheap, 3,500. We're always looking to pay down at tight end, and the target opportunity is there. And just the way the Colts play defense, I mean, we've talked about it before. It gets talked about like on national TV. They run that cover 2 defense, which kind of, opens up the middle of the field. And that's where tight ends obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, usually play is the middle of the field. So it sets up to be a pretty great spot for Dan Arnold. Just in terms of teams on this slate specifically, the Colts are 3rd worst against tight ends, only behind the Bucks and Eagles. And I think Noah Fant, who's 4,300, is a terrific GPP play. But in cash games, you're probably going this range and under. And if you need the extra salary, I definitely don't mind like Conklin for $100 less. Kind of the same thing with the Chargers is they're going to limit the big plays and funnel everything towards the middle of the field. So very similar to the Colts. Conklin back-to-back games with 7+ targets. So definitely like him quite a bit this week. And other than that, I don't really think anybody else is going to be chalk. Freiermuth, I think we have to mention, is 3,900. He's going to have ownership. I think he gets hurt with Ebron coming back. I think he gets hurt with Mason Rudolph starting. And I think the touchdown expectation is very low, even against the Lions. And before this Big Ben news, there were people I saw that were playing 3 Steelers in cash, which I would never do in 2021. But he's definitely in play if you want to go there. I think those are the 3 cash game tight ends.
Yep, I agree. Well, actually, I mean, I personally wouldn't include Freiermuth anymore. I would actually like Ricky Seals-Jones a little bit more than him. I think Ricky Seals-Jones is a pretty strong, bring back piece, contrarian bring back piece to your Buck stacks, and I think he's projecting pretty well as well. So I do like Ricky Seals-Jones this week. Leverage Fant is the question. Yeah, I mean you mentioned it briefly, but like Fant is like the go-to GPP play this week. He's going to be under 5% owned in the absolute nut spot coming back. I mean his illness. I mean he had COVID, right? So it's not like he's dealing with an injury. He should be 100% in this spot.
Yeah. Noah Fant is good to go, activated off of the COVID list. The Eagles are giving up the most catches per game to opposing tight ends. They're giving up the most DraftKings points per game to opposing tight ends. Sets up really well. And like I mentioned with Dan Arnold and the Colts defense, the Eagles kind of play the same way. It's like all three of these defenses, the Chargers, Colts, and Eagles, all played the way they play on defense is to limit big plays to opposing wide receivers. And they obviously, have Darius Slay, the Eagles do. He should be able to lock up Cortland Sutton on the outside. Then you got Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant going over the middle, just abusing a linebacking core that doesn't have the talent or athleticism in the Eagles to keep up with Noah Fant and Jerry Jeudy. So he's 4,300. I think he's the best GPP tight end play on the slate. Definitely going to have a bunch of him. And in the same game, I think Dallas Goedert is 4,700. Obviously, the concern is the Eagles just don't want to throw the ball anymore. And over the last 3 weeks, the Eagles have thrown the ball at a 37% rate, which is by far the worst in the NFL. The league average is, 60%?
Mm-hmm.
They're throwing the ball at a 37% clip. I mean, that's really the only concern. But he's still seeing like 30% of Jalen Hurts' pass attempts, and I think he's a pretty great play this week at 4,700.
Yeah, from a projection standpoint, he is projecting in some spots as the best tight end play from a value perspective, and his ownership doesn't match that. So I think Goddard's pretty solid.
Why are you exposing me, dude? Get that. I got to get that off the screen. But yes, to answer your question, that is my cash game lineup for everybody watching. It could change.
It could change. Yeah,
they figured it out. It's like,
yeah. I
mean,
you
basically say it's not.
You basically said every player. I mean, I will say that mine's a little bit different.
It's a tight player pool this week. It's a tight player pool.
It definitely is. Green Bay tight end Lewis or Degura. I've never even heard of Degura, so no.
Okay, we could talk about the cheap tight ends. I think the only cheap tight ends in play are these two, Bright and OJ.
Who's your lean between the two?
Whichever one plays more snaps or has been playing more. I don't know.
I will let you know.
I don't know which one that is. Yeah, but Gronk out. I mean, we talked about it with Brady. The Bucs are just going to continuously throw the ball, no matter the score. And it's a Washington pass funnel. So I'm fine taking a shot on one of these guys, especially at this cheap price tag. And I mean, if you want to get real off the board, 2,500, Jonnu Smith this week against the Browns can correlate him with DeAndre Johnson.
Man, Jonnu Smith being 2,500 is like really, really honestly so tragic for my best ball shares.
I have to find him. All right, Jonnu Smith.
That's sad. That's so
in
sad.
Price. Tough scene.
You know how many hundreds of dollars I spent on this man in best ball this offseason? For nothing. I was hoping he'd be like 4.7K at this time of year. Just brutal. Jared asks Jared Cook. I think it's fine. I mean, not for cash, but if you're like, playing some Chargers Vikings stacks, I don't see why not. Like punting it off with cheap tight ends is always viable, in my opinion, when it's a correlated piece, because usually, guys in this price range aren't racking up a ton of catches unless you're Dan Arnold, like you're getting there off of a touchdown. So, if he's in your Herbert stack, Herbert's throwing a touchdown, why not let it go to Jared Cook? Yeah. I mean, the obvious problem is that, DPJ is goated. So he's going to be stealing some stuff. But Cook's been playing a lot of snaps, though.
DPJ, I'm pretty sure he's on the Browns, my guy. He's not on the Chargers.
Donald Parham Jr., not fucking Donovan.
Oh, you're talking about Big Dick Donald Parham.
Yeah, bro.
Okay.
You're right. No, you're right. DPJ is definitely not his name.
It's definitely Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah, I know.
But the 3 Chargers tight ends all finished as tight end ones last week. Fun fact. Steven Anderson, throw him in there too. Yeah, like you said, the tight end position just has to be used as a correlated piece in your lineups. It really doesn't matter who it is because all of these guys are going to score between like 7 and 12 points.
Yeah.
So you just play whichever one is attached to your quarterback, or you play whatever one correlates with like a wide receiver or a running back in your lineup, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who would be your favorite though that we haven't mentioned. I mean, Noah Fant I think is my clear cut favorite.
I mean, I think we've mentioned everybody that I'm considering. Like, if you want to,
Dawson Knox though, I think he's in play.
Yeah, that's true. He's back. Also practiced fully Thursday and Friday, which is interesting. Yeah, I mean, Knox definitely has some touchdown upside. I think that him and Dalton Schultz are both interesting because their ownership is going to be so suppressed. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like just going to pay down.
So I have a question. We'll ask the question.
Yeah, what's the question, dude?
All right,
I'm on the edge of my shit.
We got a good amount of people watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're an hour in. You can keep on asking questions. We're going to go for a little bit more. Ask any DFS, redraft, any questions, whatever. Get them in the chat. Make sure you subscribe, though. Helps us out. Yeah. Subscribe right now. Come on,
subscribe. We're doing this for an hour for free on a Saturday night.
I'm 2-7, and playoff chances are slim. I got offered Kamara for, I'm assuming, Kareem Hunt and Michael Pittman. My backup wide receivers are Mike Williams. My backup running backs are Damian Harris and Javonte Williams. I mean, I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do that either.
Yeah, no.
You need something better than Hunt because if you could get a little bit better of a running back.
Yeah, if you can get a running back that isn't hurt, then maybe I would consider it.
Justin Gage. That's Russell Gage's little brother.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Russ Gage. I mean, the ceiling is just so low with Russell Gage. Like, and he's 5K. This is an egregious price tag. I think we mentioned it on the pod. Like, I can't play Russell Gage.
Maybe if he was like 3,500 like James Washington, I would think about it, but absolutely not.
I think we should talk about defense for a couple minutes. I know a lot of people, in the chat, like, oh, you'll be getting Kamara. Oh, yeah, definitely do that.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Sorry, misunderstood. Yes, absolutely. Make that trade as soon as you can. Do it right now.
But yeah, so
hang on before we get to that. Yeah, we haven't talked about this at all because it's not on the main slate and it happened after the podcast. So thoughts on OBJ and Cup with Stafford slinging it? I mean, dude, Robert Woods tore his ACL. Truly unfortunate. I mean,
I'm running that double stack next week against the Packers. I will say that.
Oh my God.
That's like 100%. You can lock it in. I will have a Stafford Cup OBJ double next week. They play 4:00 against the Packers.
Bro, you're waiting for it. You're talking about your double stacks like 8 days in advance.
Bro, I already got it locked in.
Yeah. No, I mean that off. I mean, God, like as if the Rams needed anything else, just throw OBJ in the mix. Why not? The thing that scares me with Kamara is the injury. I mean, Kareem Hunt's injured too, though. So, what are we talking about?
What NIL
friends, coworker, DFS league? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that means, bro. What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
My team would be Josh Allen, Kamara, Cook, Adams, Mike Williams, Waller. I mean, yeah, that's a vibe. That should not be a 2-7 team. Absolutely not. That's this week.
Yeah, this week.
Yeah.
Monday night game, showdown game. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think this week OBJ probably doesn't play a full complement of snaps, but I bet, maybe he does. Maybe they want to get him involved. He will.
All right. Defense.
All right. What are your thoughts on defense?
I know people like to hear about defense. I know we say defense doesn't matter, but they like to hear about the defenses. I think in cash, with Kyler Murray probably being out, I like the Panthers at 2,400. I also like the Titans at 2,600. If you were watching earlier, I did kind of outline, the way that the Titans defense doesn't succeed is going up against one of the run heaviest teams in the NFL, the second, to be exact, in the Saints. And when you're not getting a lot of attempts, in dropbacks, you're not getting a lot of opportunity for sacks, sack fumbles, interceptions, etc. But they're still at home. It's a cheap price tag. And they've been locking up good teams. Rams, Colts, Chiefs, right? All scored 10 plus in each. And they've scored 10 plus in, their last 4 out of 5. So Titans D, I think, is the best cash game defense. If you need the 200, I think the Panthers are the play. I think they're fine going up against Colt McCoy. Can't talk. Going up against Colt McCoy. So looking at those 2 defenses for cash, nobody else. And GBPs, I just like to fade the chalk defense. So I won't be playing Titans. I won't be playing Panthers. And I'll just get up to this range of like Eagles, who have a good D-line versus O-line mismatch, going up against Denver, who is down both of their tackles, I think. So it's a good spot for like Josh Sweat and the Eagles D line. Cowboys at home against Atlanta. It's obviously a great spot for the Cowboys defense.
Yeah. I mean, Diggs is definitely getting a pick 6 against Matt Ryan. Like, you already know the vibes.
Defense matters when they are cheap. I disagree.
Yeah. I know what you mean, though. Like, I don't think he's saying defenses matters, right?
I mean, yeah, like if we had the Steelers defense at 2K, then yeah, it would matter, but they're priced up to 4,100 and there's no correlation between, defensive salary and fantasy points scored. It's just so random, right? So when there's a lot of randomness and a lot of luck and a lot of variance involved in this position, I mean, it shouldn't even be on DraftKings, to be honest. Like, we shouldn't have to pick a defense. I mean, I get why they have it, just because it's like part of standard fantasy football, but it takes away, from the skill of DraftKings, in my opinion.
Yeah. I like that. But that's definitely true.
It's just a crapshoot. That's why it's like we really don't focus on it, like on the pod, but on the stream we will talk about it, especially if we have a lot of people watching, which we do right now. And I know people like to talk about defenses. But Cowboys, Eagles, and Broncos would be my favorite GPP defenses.
Some places have the Bills as the highest owned defense on the slate, which is interesting to me, because they are 4K. But I mean, the spot sets up, immaculately for them. Like, I'm going to be tilted if a chalk 4K defense burns me in all my tournaments. But I mean,
there's no shot they're chalk. I mean, oh shit, maybe. I don't know. That's tough.
There's tough.
I'm fine with fading a 4K defense.
Yeah, I am as well. Yeah, guys, get in any questions that you may have. Going to stick around for a few more minutes here. Thoughts on Dak, Cook, Johnson, Adams, Cooper, Myers, Jacoby Myers? Who are the 2 Cooks in this equation?
Jared Cook and Dalvin Cook.
Oh, no. No Jared Cook in cash, please. I would much rather play Conklin or Arnold. I also would not play Jacoby Myers. What's Myers' price? Is he just dumb cheap or something?
Myers is 4,800.
Oh yeah, no. I would rather play like we talked about, like Judy or
the biggest thing was that'd be a solid lineup if you just come off the Cardinals D and go to like the Titans, and you could use that money to upgrade like Jared Cook and Myers to like Judy and Dan Arnold or Pat Freiermuth. Like, all of those lineups would project better from a median projection.
Also think that you're giving up a lot by going with Cooper instead of Evans, but I know that the salary could be impactful.
I think so. If you go from Cardinals to Panthers D, you could go from Cooper to Evans and Myers to Judy. That fits perfect.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an improvement in all.
And then Jared Cook is fine.
Favorite 5K or lower wide receiver, and he corrects it, actually 5.6 or less.
So this range right here.
Yeah. For cash, it's Judy for me.
And GPPs, nobody.
Yeah, facts. Like,
Look at this is ugly. I don't even, like, you're gonna have to pick somebody out of this. Like in most lineups, like you're gonna need a cheap wide receiver.
I think this is absolutely like the salary dead zone though. Like I would rather go down to like Gallup or Tyler Johnson, like all the way down, or find some money to get up to like Mike Williams, Tyler Lockett, the Bucks receivers, Cooper, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, like all like like I'm finding the salary. Like I guess you could play like, I mean, would you play Marvin Jones? Like
I mean, I like Marvin
Smith,
Jones.
like, they're interesting, I guess.
I like Marvin Jones as part of like a mini stat correlation with JT.
Yeah, because he's not gonna be owned at all. So that's interesting for sure. Like Marvin Jones has big games in his range.
Yeah, but then it's like you also, he's 400 cheaper than Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
It's like I'd rather just play Amari.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
This 5K range is tough. Judy, I think, is definitely the best play. I think Cole Beasley is the second best play. And then other than that, I really don't love anybody. I mean, Sanders, Marvin Jones, those are like low owned tournament dart throws, in my opinion. You can correlate them. Like I said, Marvin with JT, Sanders with your Bill stacks, and the Bills doubles with Josh Allen, Sanders, and Beasley. They've won a tournament, right? They've won tournaments this season, and a lot of people do that, especially with Diggs being expensive and Josh Allen being expensive. So it's definitely a good way to save salaries, to stack up, the ancillary Bills wide receivers. And, this season specifically, you haven't been sacrificing much when doing that.
You really haven't.
So I guess those would be my favorite, like Sanders, Marvin Jones, Jerry Jeudy, Cole Beasley.
Kirk could be interesting. DeAndre Hopkins is probably not going to play, and Rondale Moore is legitimately questionable. And if they're both out, maybe like Kirk would be semi-interesting at 5,500. He did have 6 targets last week for almost 100 yards, put up 16 points on DK. But I mean, it's the same thing that we just said. Like I'd rather just pay up to the range above them.
Jacoby will score eventually. Yeah, I mean he's 4,800. He is on the buy low model this week. So, I mean, you could definitely take a shot on him as like a correlated piece with DeAndre Johnson. I think that's fine. And he definitely saves salary. And it's like this range, I think, is the range that you're probably going to want to be in if you want to pay down at wide receiver, just like taking a shot on, Corey Davis coming back, going up against Buffalo could be a bring back in that stack. Jacoby, DPJ, Elijah Moore, thin, like they're all thin. They're all large field tournament plays, in my opinion. Like just absolute dart throws, but I do like some of those guys. And shout out to Jacoby. I mean, Kamish Pats fan. I'm a Pats fan. Me and Jacoby have the same birthday. I always root for him.
Yeah, that's your son. Predict the winning lineup. Interesting.
The winning lineup of like cash games, or the winning lineup of the Millie Maker?
I think he means a tournament lineup, because I mean they already know what the winning cash lineup is. They already posted your lineup.
Yeah, he posted my lineup. He knows my lineup.
All right. Yeah. Do you wanna build what the winner is? Never done that before. Why the fuck not?
I'm down.
All right. You can go first.
Well, do you want to do it like a back and forth pick type thing?
Sure.
All right, yeah. All right, we're gonna build the. We gotta determine what we're gonna throw this into. Are we throwing it into a large field tournament?
Yeah.
If we are, I'll throw it into this play action. I'll literally play it. Don't dupe me. Oh,
there's the cash lineup. I mean, fuck it. They already saw it.
I mean, don't ban me, DraftKings, if you're watching.
It was an honest mistake. It was an honest mistake.
Didn't mean to do that. Now I got to change it. Because 17 people are watching.
All right.
I'll go first. I think I do think you go first. You go first.
I mean,
You
I'll
can
tell you
start
right
anyway.
now. I'll tell you right now. The winning lineup is going to have Christian McCaffrey at sub 10% owned, a 10K player that should be, I mean, God, he should be chalk at this price, and he's absolutely not. So McCaffrey, I think, is the key to winning.
Yeah, and I think another key to winning is DeAndre Johnson, who would be my pick, even in large field tournaments. Great salary saver.
The question is, what's our stack? What are we building around right here? I could go,
I'm fine with
the Brady
Herbert.
stack. Yeah, Herbert. I mean, Herbert's my favorite stack. I think Herbert, Herbert to like Mike Will is super interesting.
All right, so that's your stack. And then I think we're going to need a cheap bring back. So Conklin would be my pick.
Yep, for sure. Let's see. We got 19 left. 4K, 49.
We have a defense.
Just put a placeholder defense in there so we know what range we're in terms of like,
we'll just do Panthers.
Do we?
This is where it gets tough.
This is where we do something where we like, play like a correlated piece where it's like Tyler Johnson and like Terry McLaurin or something like that. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. Do we double it with the Vikings? What does the chat do? If this is the core of your lineup, what are we doing, chat? What are we doing to like?
This is honestly where I would struggle. Like this is probably like if I'm self-reflecting a little bit, this is probably where I start to like be like, all right, who the fuck am I playing? There's so many good plays. Or I mean,
because like, could you play like Tyler Johnson and then play like two pieces from the Packers game? Could you play like Adams, Tyler Johnson, and a Seahawks receiver? Does that fit?
I mean, we could see.
Like, or any cheap receiver, James Washington, like whoever. Like,
no, it won't fit.
Oh yeah, it won't fit.
Absolutely not.
I mean, maybe you got to come down off McCaffrey in this particular lineup when you're playing Herbert and Williams, but I mean, you could play Evans. I don't know, Godwin.
I think. Well, it's your pick, so you got to just send it in the direction.
It's my pick.
Yeah.
Oh. Gallup.
Or is it mine?
Gallup
as a one-off?
Gallup is a one-off.
I don't think, unless we play Patterson.
Yeah, nah. One-off all the way.
Well, that gives us a decent bit of salary to work with, too. So 6,600 left.
I mean, that gives you like, Pittman, Najee, or no, it doesn't. It gives you like Pittman, Evans, which is interesting.
See, we could double it and then go with like a Cooper Gallup double without Dak. That could work. That's very correlated. Just CMC, Dearness one off. We could go Jacoby in this.
What's Jacoby let you do in this spot?
Jacoby, if we go Jacoby as a Dearness, we'd have salary for whatever.
Right. So you could play.
Or we could do Jacoby, have 6,200 left. Then, if you. Then it'd kind of be like a Judy type situation. Like. I kind of like Gallup, though.
I mean, I like Gallup. Like, what about, doubling it with like Jared Cook instead and then playing like Justin Jefferson or Dalvin Cook? Like a higher ceiling bring back from the Vikings.
That could work.
If you play Cook, then you can either play Cook or Jefferson in this lineup, right?
Which one would you rather have? I think
Probably Cook.
in this specific game, it's Cook.
Yeah, I agree. And that puts you right back in that Jerry Judy range, which is pretty sexy. I like this lineup.
So Jerry Judy or Jerry Judy, and then Panthers D. Pats fan, have some faith shutting Dearness down. Hey, I already said we trying to make money.
Wait,
So
it's an even week for McKissick. This is the type of shit I love. Is that true? Is that true? Is this one of those? Uh-oh. That's really compelling evidence.
wait,
Wait.
that's the advice, bro. I was on the Jamar Chase
Yeah.
odd week.
Is that still hitting right now?
Yeah, that's still in. I think.
Unbelievable.
Because they have a bye this week.
Hopefully that doesn't mess stuff up for his.
All right, defense. I mean, do we want to play? Well, right now they're not projecting as chalk, so I guess it is pretty solid to go Panthers. But I think come tomorrow they'll be a little chalky. So I guess the pivot would be like Seattle, but nah, go with Panthers.
Yep, and then I think you just got to switch Dearness into your flex. No.
Cook.
Oh no!
That game's at 4.
That's okay. All right. Yeah. So that's
really
that's
it'd be. I'd have to do this if you really want to do that.
Right.
All right.
I like it. That's a playable lineup. I would play that lineup for sure.
Does this lineup have the ceiling to win the play action?
I think it does.
We would need, great games out of Gallup and Judy, I think is the weak spots of this lineup.
Right. So, what's the alternative?
The alternative is building a more if Dearness is high on, how do you win money by not whatever he was going to say? Yeah, and I guess that is kind of like the thesis behind the fade is like you're going to win more if he fails, right? You're not really climbing the leaderboard if he succeeds and you play him. So I would agree that you definitely do have to fade him. I'll honestly probably be in line with the field, and I think the field is going to come 50 to 60%. So I'm gonna if I'm playing 10 lineups, I'm gonna have them in 6 out of 10. If I'm playing 20, I'm gonna have them in 12 out of 10 or 12 out of 20. Just it's kind of that simple for me. Just because I do think he is a great play. Pat's run defense, we talked about it on the pod. It's not great. Definitely the weaker part of the team, I think. And I don't know. I think it's a pretty solid spot. And then the Patriots are also giving up, almost 7 catches per game to opposing running backs. And DeAndre Johnson is going to have the entire pass game role to himself. So if the Browns get down, I think there's still a script where he gets there. Like he's not losing touches to Brian Hill in passing downs. And he's not losing touches to Brian Hill in base work. So it's like, where are the flaws in the DeAndre Johnson play? Like, there's really no downside to him at this price tag.
Yeah.
Like he's 700 above minimum. Trying to say you're not playing him, you're just galaxy braining too much, I think.
It's not like Mark Ingram where there's legitimate holes that you could poke in the play. It's really honestly potentially the best running back play that we've had all year. So I don't overthink it.
But besides Alexander Madison in the
I forgot about that one.
Madison was a stone switch.
Yeah, I forgot about the Madison week where he also racked up 8 catches. God.
But in this lineup, I think it's pretty good, and I definitely like the Herbert doubles with a Cook bring back. I think the only thing that you could possibly change is going more balanced coming off of CMC and playing a guy like Cordero Patterson at 6,600, you're saving 1,800 if you do that, and you can upgrade, Jerry Jeudy to like a Mike Evans. I don't know though, but I'll go ahead and enter this lineup in, and I won't change it. So we'll see how it does. We'll come back and look at it. Don't dupe me.
Don't dupe him.
All right.
Final shot for any questions as we push our longest stream ever.
I guess my question for you is just give me your favorite long shot at each position. Well, not long shot, but your favorite GPP play at each position. And then for the skill guys, long shot.
Well, basically the lineup that we just played, it's Herbert and Mike Williams is like my favorite low owned stack. I mean, Herbert's going to have some ownership, but Mike Williams isn't. So I like that. And there's obvious bringbacks in, Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and Tyler Conklin. So like that's where I'm going to be going there. Running back, can't say it enough. Christian McCaffrey is 8,400 and going to be under 10%, and he's 100% like healthy. Like you got to jam him in. So everyone's going to be playing all these other running backs, and I'm just going to be jamming McCaffrey into all my lineups. So that's that. And then tight end, like Noah Fant.
Yeah, CMC is great. Mine would be Zeke at 7K. Favorite GPP running back. Wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb. And then if I'm picking like a cheaper guy, I guess Jacoby Myers would be mine. Quarterback, I think I'm right there with you, Herbert, but his ownership, he should be decently owned. Or no, not really actually.
Yeah, I mean he'll be under 10%. So
yeah. But yeah. Heineke, Swift. Yeah, Swift is a great play too. There's a lot of running back plays. But I think we pretty much covered everything to do with the Week 10 slate.
Indeed.
If you're still watching this, we've had pretty good concurrent viewers. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys learned something. I gave out my cash lineup, so you know who I'm playing. Hopefully it wins. Unless we get some late news, that's probably when I'm going to run. Like, honestly. And like I said, it's going to be massively duped. So it's like, I don't really care this week. Ben's lineup is a little different, though. We're not running the same lineup, thank God.
Yeah. Thank God.
But I will say my lineup is definitely better from a median projection, 100%.
Thanks, Kamesh.
Appreciate that. Shout out to everybody watching. Like I said before, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Live stream every Saturday. I don't think I'm doing anything the rest of the year. I don't know if Ben is. I know he's been gone. He's been gone. I've been gone. We've been doing that, kind of flipping the times. 11 o'clock every Saturday on this YouTube channel. We will be talking about the DraftKings slates until they are no longer.
Indeed. Stone cold facts. We'll be here every Saturday. We're your friends.
And we got Thanksgiving coming up, so we might have to do a little Thanksgiving stream. We might have to do that like Wednesday night.
Hey, I'm with that.
We got Turkey Day. What is it, like 2 weeks from now?
I think so.
Right.
I'm down with that vibe for sure. For sure I am.
Yep. So we got Turkey Day coming up. A couple weeks. We might have to do we're going to do a pod for that 100%. We might have to do a live stream for that, and then we'll have the main slate. It's going to be vibes. Make sure you subscribe.
Absolutely, man. Thank you guys for watching. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast as well. We drop 2 episodes every week. You can hear our full recap on how this slate plays out. That'll be out on Monday afternoon. I think that's it, man. Shout out to all the viewers. We appreciate you guys. We value you guys, and we'll talk to you next time.